Right, have you heard of human milk banks? They are similar to the blood transfusion service. Donated human milk is provided to neonatal intensive care units for very premature or sick babies whose mums aren't able to provide enough or any of their own breast milk. Since the pandemic, milk banks have seen a huge increase in demand for donor milk, but are having to turn away mums who want to donate because of a lack of funding. Let's talk now to Dr. Natalie Schenker, who is co-founder and trustee of the Human Milk Foundation and Hearts Milk Bank. Also to Sally Noosa, who used a milk donor for her 2-month-old son. And to Felicity Webster, who has been a milk donor. Welcome, all of you. I'll start with you, Natalie, if I may. Just explain what donor milk is.
So donor milk, the process of human milk banking works exactly the same as the National Blood Transfusion Service. Mums with surplus milk to their own babies' needs donate milk after a screening process, which includes blood tests, and we take them through a very careful system. The majority of donor milk is used in hospitals to feed very sick babies while their mothers are recovering or taking time that they need to establish their supply. And when we set up the Hearts Milk Bank 3 years ago now, principally it was to remove that lack of equity of access for very preterm, very sick babies in hospitals. But you'll see the service has grown because of the huge unmet need out in the community as well.
Which we'll talk about in just a moment, because I want to bring in Sally. Sally, hello, good morning to you, and I think that must be Sam. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Now, let me just tell our audience about you, because you were diagnosed with breast cancer in February when you were 6.5 months pregnant, and your unborn baby, Sam, as we can see him there, your then unborn baby was exposed to 3 rounds of chemo before he was actually born, and you also had COVID-19.
That's correct, yes. It was a challenging few months.
Oh my goodness. I mean, just tell us about the stress involved with all of that.
Well, obviously, being told that you have cancer is going to be stressful regardless. But being pregnant at the time added a layer of complexity that is probably fairly indescribable, and made me obviously focus mostly on thoughts of the health of my baby rather than my own health at the time.
Sure.
And then to add in COVID on top of that just really added on an awful lot of pressure for us, yes.
And because you had been having chemo, it wasn't suitable for you to breastfeed, Sam, which is where the donor milk came in. And how did you feel when they told you they could provide the milk for you?
It's very difficult to describe the level of emotion involved. So when Natalie kindly told me on the phone that they were going to give us 6 weeks worth of donor milk, it was the first time I'd cried since I'd heard my diagnosis. As I say, I was mostly concerned with Sam's health when I knew that we would have to have chemotherapy together. And so knowing that he would be given breast milk, which I wouldn't be able to provide because my own milk is currently toxic because of the chemotherapy drugs that I'm on, meant that, I just knew that he would be getting all of those really vital antibodies and, lowered rates of infection, lowered rates of cardiovascular disease and all the other wonderful things that breast milk does. So it's really just the most amazing gift anyone could give you.
And why did you decide to go for a milk donor as opposed to using formula milk?
So the World Health Organization has done a number of studies into this, and it is very clear that the very best thing for your baby is your own breast milk. The next best thing is someone else's breast milk. Now, I'm a firm believer in fed is best, and I had to feed my first son on formula. So, I do understand that it's perfectly possible to bring up a healthy baby with formula. But if there is a possibility of having breast milk, particularly given that Sam's immunity, I felt, might be somewhat compromised by some of the health concerns that I'd had during pregnancy. And also know that chemotherapy can actually reduce the size, very, very slightly, but reduce the size of an unborn baby. Then for me, it was just really important to give them the very best start that I possibly could.
Do you think there's a stigma around using another woman's breast milk?
I would certainly hope not. I can understand it's incredibly difficult at times to ask for help and to accept help, and particularly in what is, frankly, a very intimate way. But at the same time, there are women out there like Flick who are generously giving their own breast milk to help other mothers, and I think it's the most extraordinary gift anyone could give anyone, frankly. So to attach a stigma to that, I think doesn't make sense to me. I think it's something that I'm just extremely grateful for.
Well, let's bring in Felicity Webster. Hello to you, Felicity.
Hello.
What made you decide to donate your milk?
Well, I struggled with breastfeeding, actually. I had a lot of challenges myself. And when I was finding it difficult to get my baby to latch, I actually used a breast pump to express my milk. And I could give it to her that way. But actually what that created was an oversupply. So I had a lot more milk than my baby needed. My freezer was absolutely full. And a friend who's a doctor said to me, do you realise you can donate your milk? And actually it goes to tiny premature babies and it can be life-saving. So it felt like a very obvious thing to do. And I was absolutely delighted to be able to do that.
How does it feel when you donate?
It's an amazing feeling. I had this milk. It wasn't, surplus to my baby's needs. It was just a wonderful feeling when the collection came and I could give my first 2 litres, and I knew it was going to a family, and it meant a lot to me to do it. I'm really pleased that I was able to give that gift.
Natalie, I want to ask you, when the milk has been donated, how do you keep it safe?
Yes, well, the safety is at the heart of absolutely everything that's done by any milk bank across the world. And that's been one of the real pressures over the last 6 months, is making sure that we work with our colleagues globally to make sure that the milk is safe. So milk is frozen, it's kept under very careful circumstances at the milk bank, and then we heat treat, pasteurize the milk, which effectively destroys any harmful viruses or bacteria that can be in there. And then we test the milk after the pasteurization process to make sure that it's safe to be sent out. And the reason why all that safety is there is because the majority of babies receiving donor milk can be born under the age of 30 weeks gestation, so 3 or 4 months, or even more than that, premature. And so we have to make sure that the milk is as safe as it can be.
And tell us about the supply and the demand during the pandemic.
So we've been overwhelmed. There have been hundreds of women contacting us, to the point that we've had to turn people away because we need to make sure we can do all of the safety checks and support each donor as they come through. The demand from hospitals went up initially, and that's settled down now we don't know quite what the reason is. But what is problematic is that we're being contacted by mothers who've experienced the sad loss of a baby, but that baby would have fallen outside of the rationing criteria that are present in almost every hospital in the UK that uses donor milk. And that's really the perception that it's a rationed resource and that it's very precious and scarce. And what we're experiencing is a huge volume of women who want to donate this precious gift. So it's really this part in the middle, the milk bank logistics, that needs support. And that's where we're calling on extra investment and support from government.
Sally, how is Sam doing?
He is thriving. He's doing absolutely brilliantly, thanks to the support of Natalie.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. And in terms of chemo, do you have any cycles left, or have you completed it?
I had my last treatment last Thursday.
Oh, wow.
So
well, that is the most incredible feeling. How did you feel?
So it's great that it's finished. Obviously, chemotherapy isn't fun, so I'm still suffering just a little bit from it.
Yeah.
In the middle of a hot flush at the moment, in fact. But really looking forward to about another week's time when all those side effects have gone away and I'm finished.
Yeah, and you can get on with the rest of your life. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Sally. Thanks for talking to us, and continued success with the rest of your recovery. Sally Noosa, and Sam, who was absolutely delightful and so well behaved, mainly because he was asleep through the whole of it. Dr. Natalie Schenker, thank you, co-founder and trustee of the Human Milk Foundation and Hearts Milk Bank. And Felicity, as a milk donor, thank you for your time as well, Felicity Webster. Thank you.